I remember the exact moment something inside me shifted. It wasn't loud. There was no shouting, no slammed doors. It happened quietly, somewhere between a red light and the low hum of the engine as I drove us home from his friend's dinner party. He had been silent most of the drive, not relaxed, calculating, like he was rehearsing something in his head. Then he said it. You know, he began, staring out the window. Daniel's wife just got themselves a BMW. She bought it outright. No hesitation, no drama. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. All night he had been orbiting that car, opening the door, sitting in the driver's seat, asking about horsepower, financing, upgrades, laughing a little too hard when Daniel talked numbers. I told myself it was harmless. Just curiosity, just guys talking. But now his tone shifted. They said it's technically a shared asset, he added. Makes sense, right? Something solid, for the family, for the future. I felt my jaw tighten. And it's safer, he continued, warming to the idea. Better resale value, better image. Honestly, it's smarter than what we're driving now. That word slid into the conversation like camouflage. I glanced at him. His eyes were lit up, not with partnership, but with expectation. So you think I should buy one? I asked carefully. He scoffed, like the answer was obvious. Not just for me. For us. For our life together. I mean, other couples invest in real assets. Cars like that hold value. Plus, it shows we're doing well. There it was. Not a want. A standard. He shifted in his seat. Daniel's wife never worries about money. Her husband handles it, provides, makes sure they're comfortable. Provides. That word landed heavier than the rest. I worked in finance. I made good money. I planned. I saved. I thought long term. We split expenses proportionally. We had agreed on that. Or at least I thought we had. I didn't respond. I drove. He took my silence as resistance. I'm not asking for something crazy, he said, sharper now. I'm just saying, if we're getting married, shouldn't we start acting like a unit, like real adults? The implication was clear. If I didn't say yes, I wasn't just declining a car, I was failing at partnership. At home, the space between us felt louder than any argument. He was curt, dismissive, cold in that way that makes you start questioning your own instincts. I told myself it was stress, wedding planning, ego. I didn't know yet that this wasn't really about a BMW. It was about entitlement, disguised as shared vision. And I was about to find out how far he expected me to go to prove I was all in. When I look back now, the unsettling part isn't that the comparisons started. It's how normal everything felt before them. I was 32 when we met. Stable job in finance. A quiet condo I'd bought on my own years earlier. Retirement accounts I contributed to religiously. I wasn't flashy, but I was secure. I liked that about my life. It felt earned. He was 29, charming in an effortless way. Worked in marketing, creative, social, good at reading people. He made less than I did, but that never bothered me. We talked about it early on. Numbers, expectations, goals. We agreed to split expenses proportionally. I paid more because I made more. It felt fair, balanced, adult. For 4 years, that system worked, or at least I believed it did. We built routines, Sunday grocery runs, weeknight dinners on the couch, long conversations about where we wanted to be in 5 years. He talked about ambition, about wanting more. I encouraged him, helped him revise resumes, celebrated his promotions, even when they were small. I liked being supportive. I liked being a team. When we got engaged, 6 months before all of this unraveled, I thought it was the natural next step. He proposed with a ring he'd saved for. Nothing extravagant, but thoughtful. I said yes without hesitation. Wedding planning started soon after. Spring, outdoor venue, modest guest list. I paid the deposits, venue, vendors, because my income made it easier. We talked about it. He thanked me, promised we'd rebalance later. I believed him. We talked about saving for a house down payment, about not overextending ourselves, about being smart. He agreed with all of it, at least verbally. That's what makes this shift so hard to pinpoint. The first cracks didn't look like greed, they looked like aspiration. Comments about other couples, about lifestyles, about what real adults were doing. I brushed them off. People compare, especially around weddings, especially around friends who seem to have more. Daniel and his wife were one of those couples. They had money, or at least they looked like they did. Nice house, nice car, weekend trips. I never envied them. But my fiancé noticed everything, asked questions, paid attention to details I didn't think mattered. I didn't know then that Daniel's wife had paid for most of what they had herself, that she earned more, that she had protected what she built. What my fiancé saw wasn't the structure, it was the outcome. And slowly, without saying it outright, he began measuring me against her. Not in a cruel way at first, just comments, observations. They're doing well. They don't worry about money. She seems really taken care of. I didn't hear accusation yet. I heard expectation. The irony is, I thought we were aligned. Thought we shared values. Thought my steadiness was something he appreciated. What I didn't realize was that somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing my financial discipline as partnership and started seeing it as untapped potential. Something he deserved access to. Something that proved love. So when the BMW conversation happened, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of 4 years of quiet assumptions I never knew he was making. And once those assumptions surfaced, there was no way to put them back where they came from. The shift didn't happen all at once. It crept in through repetition. After the BMW night, the comments didn't stop. They multiplied. At first, they were framed as observations. Casual, almost harmless. Daniel's wife surprised him with a weekend trip last month. She didn't even split the restaurant bill. They don't nickel and dime each other. Each time he said they, but his eyes always flicked toward me. I noticed how often he brought her up, how her name surfaced in conversations that had nothing to do with her, how quickly admiration turned into comparison. I tried not to react. We were engaged, 6 months from a wedding. I told myself this was pre-wedding anxiety, manifesting in strange ways. People get weird when big commitments loom. But by the second week, the tone changed. It wasn't admiration anymore. It was dissatisfaction. One night, after dinner, he leaned back on the couch and said, "I just think couples should stop keeping score. If you love someone, you don't make everything transactional." I looked at him. "We don't keep score." He shrugged. "Sometimes it feels like you do." That stung. I paid more because I earned more. I covered deposits because it made sense. I never asked him to match me dollar for dollar. I never held it over his head. But suddenly fairness was being recast as stinginess. A few days later, we met another couple for coffee. The conversation drifted, as it often does, to finances and marriage. The guy mentioned his prenup casually, like he was talking about insurance. My fiancé laughed, loudly. "Who even does that anymore?" he said. So unromantic, like you're planning for failure. The guy shrugged, protected both of us. Smart decision. I stayed quiet. On the drive home, my fiancé went off. "Can you imagine making your spouse sign paperwork like that? Like it's a business deal?" I nodded non-committally, but something in my chest tightened. That night, after he fell asleep, I texted Daniel's wife. Just one question. "Hey, random question. You and Daniel have a prenup?" The reply came quickly. "Yeah, solid one. My financial advisor insisted before we got married." "Why?" I stared at the screen. "Just curious," I typed back. "I've been hearing a lot of comparisons lately." There was a pause, then, "Yeah, good luck with that conversation." That was the moment it clicked. The woman my fiancé had been holding up as the ideal partner, the benchmark, the example I was supposed to follow, she had protected herself. She had assets, boundaries, structure. She enjoyed the lifestyle because she was financially smart, not because someone else handed it to her. My fiancé didn't know that. Or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. Either way, the hypocrisy was glaring. He wanted the outcome without acknowledging the framework that made it possible. The generosity without the responsibility. The security without the structure. And for the first time, I stopped asking myself why he was so focused on what other people had, and started asking what he expected from me. By Sunday dinner, when he brought up the BMW again, this time framed as a smart investment for us, I already knew what I was going to do. If he wanted me to be more like her, I would be, in every way. Sunday dinner felt deceptively normal. He cooked pasta, opened a bottle of wine, put music on like he always did when he wanted things to feel calm, domestic, resolved. If someone had walked in, they would have thought we were fine, engaged, stable, on track. But I felt it, tight in my chest, buzzing under my skin. He waited until we were halfway through eating. "So," he said casually, twirling his fork, "I've been thinking more about what we talked about." I didn't look up. "About the BMW?" "About us," he corrected quickly. "Our future." There it was again. That soft pivot from want to vision. "I think after the wedding," he continued, "it would make sense to upgrade the car. Something more substantial, safer, like a BMW. I finally met his eyes. "And by we," I asked evenly, You mean me. He smiled, relieved. See, you get it. The way he said it, like I'd finally passed a test, made something in me go still. I mean, he went on, warming up now, Daniel and his wife treat things like shared investments, big purchases, long-term thinking. That's what real partnership looks like. I set my fork down carefully. Okay, I said, good point. His shoulders relaxed. If we're modeling our marriage after couples who are doing well, I continued, then it makes sense to follow their structure too, not just the lifestyle. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? Well, I said, keeping my voice calm, Daniel's wife protected herself financially before marriage. She has a prenup. His expression changed instantly. A prenup? He repeated, incredulous. Yes, I said. If we're doing things the way she did, I should probably do what she did too. Be smart. Protect what I built. The silence that followed was sharp. That's not the same thing, he said quickly. How? It just isn't, he snapped. Buying a car is about building a life. A prenup is cold, calculating. I leaned back in my chair. It's financial planning. No, he said, voice rising. It's saying you don't trust me. It has nothing to do with trust, I replied. She did it. You admire her for it. So I should follow the same model. His face flushed. You're twisting this. I'm following your example, I said. Exactly. He pushed his chair back and stood. I can't believe you'd even suggest this. After 4 years together? I can't believe you expect me to make six-figure purchases without the same protections you praise in other marriages. That's different, he insisted. Different because it benefits you? He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his jacket. I need space, he said tightly. I'm going to my mom's. He left without waiting for a response. An hour later, my phone buzzed. We need to talk about this. You're being unreasonable. I didn't reply. I wasn't being unreasonable. I was being consistent. Tuesday morning, I called a family law attorney. I explained the situation, the comparisons, the BMW, the resistance to structure. She laughed softly, not unkindly. So, she said, he wants the lifestyle but not the protections that fund it. Exactly. Smart to address this now, she said. Come in Thursday. We'll draft something fair. Thursday afternoon, I sat across from her desk as she walked me through the document. It protected my premarital assets, my condo, my retirement accounts, my investments, kept debts separate, included a reasonable lifestyle clause that adjusted over time. Nothing extreme, nothing punitive. Balanced. It cost me $2,500 in legal fees. Worth every dollar. Friday evening, he texted. Can we please talk? I miss you. I told him to come over. He arrived with takeout, his apology language. We ate. He chatted about work, about nothing, like Sunday night had never happened. When the moment felt right, I slid the envelope across the table. So, I said calmly, I took your advice. He froze. What's this? I matched her energy, I said. Here's the prenup. His face drained of color. You actually got a lawyer? You said I should be more like her, I replied. Now I am. He stared at the envelope like it might bite him. I can't believe you're serious. I am. He stood abruptly. I need to think about this. He left again. This time I didn't follow. Because I already knew. The BMW had never been the real issue. This was. The week after I handed him the prenup felt unreal. Quiet in the way that isn't peaceful. Just suspended. Saturday morning, my phone started buzzing before I was even fully awake. Missed calls, voicemails, names I hadn't expected to see lighting up my screen so soon. His mother, his sister, his aunt. I didn't answer any of them. I listened to the voicemails instead, sitting on the edge of my bed, the phone heavy in my hand. His mother's voice was the loudest. I don't know what kind of woman you think you are, she snapped, barely pausing for breath. But insulting my son with a prenup is beyond disrespectful. He's a good man. You should be grateful he even proposed. This paperwork nonsense is cruel. Call me immediately. I didn't call. I forwarded the voicemail to my attorney. She replied with 2 words. Document everything. Sunday morning, he showed up at my condo, key still in his pocket, with his mother and sister in tow. An intervention. I let them in. Not because I felt obligated, but because I wanted to see it clearly. No fog, no second guessing. His mother didn't bother sitting down. We need to discuss this prenup situation, she said sharply. It's unacceptable. I folded my arms. It's standard, his sister scoffed. Standard for rich people. You're not rich. I met her gaze calmly. I own a condo valued at about $320,000. I have retirement accounts totaling around $180,000 and investments close to $95,000. Those are premarital assets. The prenup protects them. His mother waved a dismissive hand. Marriage is about sharing everything. Then why did Daniel's wife have a prenup? I asked evenly. The room went silent. You praised her for being smart, I continued. You held her up as the ideal. So why is it insulting when I do the same thing? His sister shifted uncomfortably. His mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, he spoke. That's different. Different how? I asked. She had more to protect. Exactly, I said. And so do I. No one had an answer. His sister tried another angle. You're basically saying you don't trust him. I'm saying I'm following the same financial model you told me to admire. His mother's voice softened, but only slightly. If you really loved my son, you wouldn't need this. If he really respected me, I said, he wouldn't compare me to other women while expecting access to what I've built. That landed. They left shortly after, his mother clearly furious, his sister avoiding eye contact. Monday, Daniel called me. Hey, he said, sounding awkward. So, this is a weird call. I wanted to reach out because my wife told me about your text. Okay, I said. I just want you to know, she never meant to be used as a comparison. That wasn't our intention. I know, I replied. This isn't on her. He paused. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. I didn't answer right away. Our prenup actually saved us last year, he continued. We hit a rough patch. Knowing everything was protected on both sides made it easier to stay and work through things instead of turning it into a war. Saved you? I asked. Yeah, he said quietly. Sounds backward, but the protection made commitment feel safer, not scarier. That stuck with me. Tuesday, my fiancé showed up again, this time with a lawyer. Mid-50s, budget suit, the kind of letterhead that screamed traffic tickets and small claims. They sat across from me on my couch. I've reviewed the document, the lawyer said, flipping pages. It's thorough. My attorney is thorough, I replied. My client feels it's overreaching. In what way? He hesitated. The asset protection, the debt separation, the lifestyle clause. That's the point of a prenup. It leaves my client vulnerable, he said carefully. How? I asked. He keeps his income, his assets. His debts remain his. If we divorce, compensation scales with time married. What's unfair? He shifted, uncomfortable. My fiancé finally spoke. I'm supposed to be your husband, not an employee with a severance package. You wanted me to follow her model, I said. This is her model. I wanted generosity, he snapped, not paranoia. I wanted partnership, I replied, not entitlement. The lawyer cleared his throat. Perhaps we can negotiate. If he doesn't want to sign, I said calmly, he doesn't have to. The silence was thick. Then he stood. This is ridiculous, he said. You're choosing money over me. No, I said quietly. I'm choosing clarity. They left. And for the first time since this started, I felt something settle. Not relief. Resolve. Things didn't calm down after that. They accelerated. By the second week, it was clear the prenup hadn't just upset him. It had activated his entire family. Calls came from numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails layered over each other, all carrying the same message with different voices. I was selfish. I was humiliating him. I was tearing the family apart. One afternoon, his uncle, someone I'd met maybe 3 times in 4 years, called me at work. You're being deliberately difficult, he said without preamble. You're treating my nephew like a gold digger. I stayed calm. I'm treating him like someone who spent weeks telling me to spend money the way someone with a prenup does. That's different, he snapped. How? I asked. You know how. No, I said evenly. I don't. He hung up. That became the pattern. Accusations without explanations. Pressure without logic. Then his grandmother called. This one almost worked on me. She was gentle, soft-spoken. Someone I genuinely liked. Sweetheart, she said, why are you being so stubborn over paperwork? I closed my eyes, because he spent weeks comparing me to someone who has that exact paperwork. But he's upset. He's upset that I followed his advice. She was quiet for a moment, then sighed. I suppose that does sound unfair. The calls slowed after that. The confrontations didn't. The following Tuesday, security called my office. There's a man here asking for you, the guard said. Says he's family. I knew before I went downstairs. It was his brother. He didn't bother with pleasantries. We need to talk about this prenup, he said, jaw tight. You're being unreasonable. I'm being consistent, I replied. You're making him jump through hoops. I'm asking him to sign a document that protects both of us. He doesn't have anything to protect, his brother snapped. That's exactly why he shouldn't be afraid of signing it. His face darkened. Are you calling my brother poor? I'm stating facts, I said. He has student debt and minimal assets. The prenup protects him from my debt and me from his. That's fair. You're a piece of work, he muttered. Security was already watching. He left. That same afternoon, I got an email from the wedding venue. Your fiancé contacted us regarding a possible postponement. Since you paid the deposit, we need your confirmation. My stomach tightened. I called them immediately. We're not postponing anything, I said. If he wants to cancel or delay, he needs to speak with me first. The coordinator sounded stressed. He was very insistent, said you were having issues. We're having a disagreement about financial planning, I said. The wedding is still on as far as I'm concerned. Understood, she said. We'll note that. That night, I came home to find him sitting on my couch. He still had a key. The wedding binder was open on the table between us, pages bent, notes scattered. His eyes were red, not theatrical, but raw. We need to fix this, he said as soon as I walked in. The wedding is in 6 months. Invitations go out next month. We can't keep doing this. I didn't sit next to him. I took the chair across the room. I agree, I said. Relief flickered across his face. So, he said, leaning forward, let's compromise. Sign the prenup, I said calmly. His shoulders slumped. I can't sign it as written, he said. It's too one-sided. It protects both of us equally. No, he argued. You're risking nothing. I'm risking everything. That's not true, I said. I'm risking my assets. You're risking none because you don't have any. That doesn't make me a financial risk, he said sharply. I'm your future husband. Then sign the prenup and prove it. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. If you're not after my money, I continued, you have nothing to worry about. His voice cracked. Why are you being so cold? I'm being clear, I said. That's different. He dragged a hand down his face. What if we compromise another way? I waited. I signed the prenup, he said slowly, but you pay off my student loans first, as a show of good faith. No, he blinked. No? No, I repeated. Those loans are your premarital debt. The prenup exists to keep us from absorbing each other's premarital obligations. You'd really let this end over $45,000? I'm not ending it, I said. You are. He stood abruptly. You're choosing money over us. I'm choosing boundaries, I replied. You can sign the prenup and we move forward, or you don't and we don't. Silence stretched between us. Then he walked out. Friday morning, his attorney called me directly. Ms. Almay, he said, we need to discuss your position. You can discuss it with my attorney. I'm trying to avoid unnecessary legal fees. Then advise your client to sign the prenup or walk away. You're being unreasonable. Your client asked me to pay off his debt and buy him a luxury car while signing away my financial protection, I said. That's not reasonable. That's documented. Silence. I'll speak with my client, he said finally. That afternoon, his best friend texted me. You're really going to lose him over a piece of paper? I stared at the screen before replying. If a piece of paper reveals this much entitlement, maybe it's doing its job. He didn't respond. Saturday was the nuclear option. He showed up with both parents. They wanted a family meeting. I let them in. His mother didn't waste time. We've prepared a counterproposal. A counterproposal? I repeated. To a prenup? She slid papers across the table. I read them. No prenup. Full access to marital assets, including my premarital condo if we lived in it. Mandatory lifestyle standards. Student loans paid within the first year. $75,000 allocated to a family planning fund. I looked up slowly. This gives him everything, I said, and gives me nothing. His father spoke quietly. We're trying to find middle ground. This isn't middle ground, I said. This is me becoming a wallet. His mother snapped. Marriage is about sharing. Marriage is about partnership, I replied. This is ownership. The answer is no. If you don't agree, she said tightly, there won't be a wedding. Then that's his choice, I said. But I won't sign away my assets and commit to additional spending for someone who refuses a basic prenup. They left. He lingered at the door. This is really it, he said. You're choosing money over us. No, I said. You're choosing access over accountability. He left. I sat alone, staring at the papers they'd brought, and finally understood something clearly. The prenup didn't create this problem. It exposed it. The apartment felt hollow after he left. Not empty, hollow, like something had been scooped out and replaced with silence that echoed no matter where I stood. I sat on the couch for a long time, the counter-proposal still spread across the table in front of me. The paper felt heavier than it should have, like it carried the weight of every assumption he'd been making about me without ever saying out loud. No prenup, full access, lifestyle guarantees, debt paid, future funds pre-allocated. It wasn't negotiation. It was entitlement, formalized. I tried to sleep that night and couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed the same moments. His tone when he talked about the BMW, the way he said we when he meant me, the ease with which his family stepped in to pressure me the second I set a boundary. By morning, exhaustion settled in my bones. Day by day, the silence stretched. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up. And somehow that hurt more than the shouting ever could have. I checked my phone too often, hating myself for it. Part of me still wanted him to realize what he was asking, to come back and say he'd gone too far, that he'd choose partnership over access. But the messages never came. Instead, the reality of what I was losing crept in. The wedding, the plans, the deposits, the version of the future I'd already started grieving. I called the venue midweek, my voice steady even though my hands shook. "We're going to need to cancel," I said. "The engagement is no longer moving forward." The coordinator was sympathetic, explained what was non-refundable, what wasn't. $6,500 gone with one phone call. Then the caterer, the photographer, the florist, the DJ. Each conversation stripped something else away. By the time I was done, the total sat around $9,000. It hurt. Not enough to make me regret the decision, but enough to make it real. That night, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by half-packed boxes of wedding decor I hadn't had the heart to throw away yet. The engagement ring sat on the coffee table, catching the light. I hadn't touched it since he left. It felt like a symbol of something that had never really existed the way I thought it did. I picked it up, turned it slowly between my fingers. 6 months earlier, it had felt like certainty. Now it felt like a question mark. Was I really ending a 4-year relationship over paperwork? That doubt crept in, insidious and sharp. What if I was being too rigid? What if this was about trust? What if I was letting fear dictate my choices? I sat with those questions longer than I wanted to admit. Then I remembered the counter-proposal. Remembered his demand that I pay off his debt before he'd commit to protecting what I'd built. Remembered his family telling me love meant access. And the doubt shifted. This wasn't about paperwork. It was about what happened when I said no. About how quickly love turned into leverage. About how easily he was willing to let his family pressure me into compliance. I wasn't just losing a fiancé. I was losing an illusion. And that loss hurt more than anything else. By the end of the week, the exhaustion turned into something heavier. Grief, not for the man he was, but for the version of him I thought existed. For the partnership I believed we were building. I cried once, quietly. In the shower, where the sound of water could swallow it. Then I stopped. Because somewhere beneath the sadness, something else was forming. Clarity. I didn't know yet how this would end. I only knew one thing for certain. I couldn't go back to who I was before I saw the truth. The silence broke a week later. Not with an apology, not with accountability. With a demand. It came through my attorney. Formal, impersonal, deliberate. He wasn't asking for the ring back. He wanted money. According to the letter, since he had paid for the engagement ring, I now owed him the full cash value of it. The engagement was over. The relationship was over. Therefore, in his view, I should reimburse him. I read the letter slowly, my chest tightening with each line. After everything, after the pressure, the entitlement, the refusal to sign a fair prenup, this was the hill he chose. Not reconciliation, not closure. Reimbursement. My attorney didn't react emotionally. She never did. She read the letter once, then looked up at me. "That's not how engagement rings work," she said. "He paid for it," I said. "Doesn't that matter?" "It matters who paid," she replied, "but it matters more what the ring is. In this state, engagement rings are conditional gifts. The condition is marriage. And since there's no marriage, there's no obligation for you to reimburse him in cash," she said calmly. "The legal remedy, if any, is the return of the ring, not payment." So she responded. Clear, direct, backed by case law. If he wanted the ring returned, that could be arranged. If he wanted money, the answer was no. He pushed back. Another letter came, stronger language this time. Accusations that I was being punitive, claims that I was financially exploiting him, suggestions that I was using the ring as leverage. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so revealing. My attorney responded once more. Same answer. Return the ring or drop the matter. There would be no cash payment. After that, the tone changed. The threats disappeared. A few days later, my attorney called. "They've agreed to accept the ring back," she said. "No money." I closed my eyes and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. We arranged the exchange carefully. Neutral location, brief, no conversation required. When he arrived, he looked tense, not angry, contained, like someone forcing himself not to lose control. He didn't say much. Neither did I. I handed him the ring. He took it, stared at it for a moment longer than necessary, then slipped it into his pocket. That was it. No speech, no apology, no acknowledgement of everything that had led us there. And strangely, that told me more than words ever could have. Later that evening, I sat alone in my living room, the space quieter than it had been in weeks. The legal noise had stopped. The demands had stopped. And in their absence, something settled. This wasn't about a ring. It never had been. It was about control, about entitlement, about what he believed he was owed simply for having been chosen. The prenup conversation hadn't ended our relationship. It had revealed it. And now, with the last loose end tied off, I could finally see the situation for what it was. Cleanly, clearly, without distortion. The power struggle was over. Not because he won, but because I stopped playing. Once the ring was out of my hands, the noise didn't stop. It just changed shape. Mutual friends started reaching out in waves. Texts first, then calls. Some cautious, some invasive, most clearly carrying secondhand versions of the story that had already been edited before they reached me. "You okay?" "I heard things got intense." "He's saying you blindsided him," I answered carefully. "We had different views on finances and boundaries," I said. "It became clear before the wedding." Some accepted that, others didn't. One friend pushed harder. "He says you were controlling, that the prenup was extreme." I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself emotionally. I stated facts. He compared me to another woman's lifestyle and expected me to fund it. When I asked for the same financial protections that woman had, he refused. That usually ended this conversation. The ones who pressed further got more detail. The BMW, the debt demands, the counter-proposal. Silence followed. A few friendships faded after that. I let them. Midweek, his attorney sent one final message to mine. Not a demand this time, a notification. The matter of the ring was considered closed. No further claims would be pursued. My attorney forwarded it with a short note. "You're done." I stared at the email longer than necessary, letting the finality sink in. Then I changed my locks. Not out of spite, out of clarity. He still had a key. I wasn't interested in discovering what entitlement looked like when it had nowhere else to go. It cost me $240. Worth it. That evening, he showed up anyway. I watched through the door camera as he tried the lock once. Then again, harder. Then he knocked. Then pounded. "You seriously changed the locks?" he shouted. "Are you kidding me?" I didn't open the door. I spoke through the camera instead. "Yes," I said. "The wedding's off. There's no reason for you to have access to my home." "I have things in there." "No," I replied evenly. "Everything of yours was packed weeks ago. It's in the garage. I'll have it delivered." "You can't just lock me out," he snapped. "I can," I said, and I did. His face twisted, shock giving way to anger. "You're unbelievable," he said. "After everything." "After everything," I replied. "This is the first boundary you didn't get to negotiate." He swore, said things that confirmed every decision I'd made. I saved the footage, just in case. 2 days later, his father called. Just him. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Off the record." We met at a quiet bar, neutral ground, no audience. He looked tired, older than I remembered. "I owe you an apology," he said after a moment. "My wife has been pushing our son toward that mindset for years, comparing, measuring, telling him what he should expect instead of what he should build." "And you?" I asked. "I stayed quiet," he admitted. "Tried to keep the peace. I shouldn't have." He took a sip of his drink. "When you stood your ground on the prenup, it exposed a double standard. That needed to happen." "Is he seeing that?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not yet. He thinks he'll find someone else who will give him what he wants without conditions." "Maybe he will," I said. "But not someone with assets," he replied. "Not someone who worked for them." We finished our drinks. He paid. A small gesture, but I noticed. By the end of the month, the story had settled into 2 versions. In one, I was cold, calculating, too focused on money. In the other, I was practical, smart, unwilling to be pressured into financial submission. I didn't correct either. People believe what aligns with their values. What mattered was what I knew. I hadn't ended the relationship over money. I'd ended it over entitlement. Over the moment he believed love meant access without accountability. Over the realization that when I said no, he didn't try to understand. He tried to escalate. Family, lawyers, guilt, pressure. All of it. One night, I sat alone in my living room, scrolling through photos I hadn't deleted yet. Trips, smiles, a version of us that looked solid from the outside. I didn't feel regret. I felt grief for the future I thought we were building, and relief that it hadn't gotten far enough to destroy what I'd already built on my own. I scheduled my first therapy session that week, not because I doubted my decision, but because I wanted to understand why I'd ignored the signs for so long. The comparisons, the shifting language, the way we always seemed to mean me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done, and that was more powerful than anything else. Day 30. That was when it finally felt over, not legally, not logistically, but emotionally. A new number flashed on my phone. I didn't recognize it. I almost ignored it. "I hope you're happy," the message read. "You destroyed us over money." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then locked my phone without replying. Some conversations don't deserve a response. He was right about one thing. It did end over money. He was wrong about who destroyed what. This wasn't about greed. It was about entitlement, about expecting access without accountability, security without contribution, benefits without commitment. I didn't lose a fiancé. I dodged a future where my boundaries would have been negotiated down every time they inconvenienced someone else. I kept my condo, my retirement accounts, my investments, everything I had built before him, and everything I would continue building after. I started therapy, not because I regretted the decision, but because I wanted to understand the parts of myself that had stayed quiet when the comparisons began, why I'd minimized discomfort instead of naming it, why I'd confused peace with avoidance. The signs had been there, the fixation on other people's lifestyles, the language of we when he meant me, the way love became transactional the moment I said no. I won't ignore those again. A week later, Daniel reached out one last time, not to rehash anything, just to check in. "Matching energy only works when both people accept the full package," he said. He was right. Partnership isn't about who pays more or who provides what. It's about alignment, about shared values, about respect for what each person brings to the table and what they choose to protect. What my fiancé wanted wasn't partnership. It was access. And when access was denied, everything else unraveled. So yes, the engagement is over. The relationship is done. But my future is intact. Clearer than it's ever been. When someone shows you who they are under pressure, believe them. I did. And that made all the difference.